In from Montreal, McGill University School of Aviation Management, John Gradek, as we do often on these kinds of stories, especially when they are breaking and developing. John, first of all, there is some video on social media of this plane just before it crashed. It's not verified video, so we're not running it here, but I know you've seen some of it, as well as some of these pictures in this residential neighborhood that we understand is about 3 minutes from the airport, which is where the plane went down. What have you noticed or learned about the crash after watching this video and some of the footage we're talking about this morning?
The aircraft looked very normal in terms of its external configuration. There was no smoke coming out of the aircraft. There was nothing that indicated any engine failure. When you have these types of situations happen that close to takeoff, if it was things like a bird strike or things like an external device or an explosive device, you'd see some evidence in the aircraft trailing on its way into impact, but there was none of that. In fact, the landing gear on the airplane was still extended. So they usually retract that landing gear about 30 to 45 seconds after takeoff. So this airplane was in takeoff configuration on its approach to the point of impact. So the cockpit crew was quite busy, I would believe, trying to save the aircraft, and the gear retraction was the last thing on their mind.
Yeah, and just to update some of those numbers, there were 12 crew members, so 2 pilots, 10 cabin crew. While we were showing those pictures, and that is a portion, I can't tell which portion of the plane, John, but you could probably tell us, that has landed on, we don't know if this is a residence or a commercial building, but while we take a look at that, and just before I hear from you, I want to update everybody. This is from the police commissioner. They do not believe there are any survivors from this crash. They also believe that on the ground there will be, as they said, some locals also will have died. So that is the very latest from the ground there, and the police commissioner on the ground. In the meantime, John, when you look at this portion of the plane, given what is broken and what is intact, what could that tell us?
Well, the airplane was not, going into it was a flared approach. It wasn't a nose-in approach, so there was some level of control in the airplane. So the major components of the airplane remain intact. You can see from this video that as part of the fuselage that's embedded in the top of the building. So the airplane did not disintegrate. The airplane was coming into an approach type of landing, but there was no control in the airplane. The airplane went straight into it plowed into the neighborhood pretty well straight in. So it was, the crew was fighting for control of the airplane. My concern, this is a Dreamliner airplane. There are 1,200 airplanes flying it around the world today. That this airplane's been around for about 15 years in active service. So the question everybody's asking right now, in terms of anybody flying a Dreamliner as an operator, as an airline, is there anything that we ought to look at quickly to kind of figure out what happened to this airplane? So that's the major concern on the minds of most airlines and their manufacturers.
And of course, the rescue mission continues, or recovery mission at this point, as we're learning from the police commissioner, that they do believe that everybody on board that flight, Air India Flight 171, that was headed to Gatwick in London, that everybody on board has died. And again, they're continuing to assess the situation on the ground there. John, where does the investigation go from here, and what's happening on the ground? We should remind people it's about 9.5 hours ahead their time.
Yeah, it's evening. They're looking at securing as much of the area around the airplane as they possibly can, getting people out from the ground, survivors that are, of the residential buildings, making sure that medical aid is given to those people as quickly as possible. The Transportation Safety Board in India will be attacking this airplane quickly to find the voice cockpit reporter and the aircraft reporter. They're looking at air traffic control tapes and talking to the air traffic controllers if they have any information about what happened to this airplane. But it is going to be really critical that we get information about the pattern that this airplane was flying, why it came down so quickly, and that's going to be very much something that's going to have to be showing up in our on our radar screens within the next 72 hours.
And again, we've talked about these kinds of investigations that sometimes it's eliminating things as well as adding information. We know that a Mayday call went out when air traffic control then put out a call back. They did not get a response from the plane. I just want to ask you again quickly about the plane. You were talking about how the 787 Dreamliner, this is the first crash ever of this type of aircraft. That's according to Aviation Safety Network database. The fact that they have not had problems in the past, I imagine, would also widen the investigation to other options.
Well, I think that the thing is, you're going to be looking at the maintenance of this airplane. India is going through a major expansion of its air services at this point in time. They're buying thousands of new airplanes as we speak among the carriers in India. So, we're looking at India being very much on an aggressive pattern to refleet and to rebuild their aviation network. So, the one thing that comes to mind is, what type of maintenance have this airplane been going under? What type of training did the crew have? What was the actual maintenance record on this airplane? Who did it? When was it done? And what was done? So there's a lot of data that has to be going through very, very quickly to find out, is this a problem with the aircraft, or is this basically isolated to just this Air India operation?
The story is still developing and the investigation is ongoing. So, John Gradek, I want to thank you for joining us this morning.
My pleasure. Have a great day.
Yeah.